Yes, and my argument is that because the way the military stands today, I interviewed dozens and dozens of people for my book that were still active duty or recently left the military, and uh, they all felt similarly in terms of their stance on the modern military, which was that it had lost sight of the mission. It had lost sense of its purpose. Instead of, the priority being, um, you know, training to ensure that we're the most lethal, most like efficient fighting force in the world that terrifies our adversaries. Instead, they're focused on training upon diversity training and anything you could imagine that is taking them away from going to the range and shooting their guns or flying helicopters. We've seen the number of helicopter accidents go up that there's been, I think, 10 class A accidents, which means over $2 million in damage or a fatality, um, since October. So that is extremely, extremely high for the Army aviation community. And it's because they're not getting their flight hours. They're focusing their priorities elsewhere on DEI, on, making sure that we're meeting all of these quotas, all of these trainings, like stand down days for extremism, the Secretary of Defense saying that, you know, white extremism is the biggest threat internally to the US military, when, an independent congressional investigation found there was 100 instances of the entire force, which is even lower than like the civilian population, of any type of actual extremism. So it was 100% false, yet they wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars on this stand down day, as well as losing an entire day of training. And when World War III is knocking on our door every day counts.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It does seem that there seems to be like this debate inside of Congress and maybe in the military itself, where it's okay, is the military functional or is the military social? Like, is it supposed to reflect civil society? And there's been about a big debate about, yes, the military should be sort of a mini society inside of society. So it should reflect society. So there should be this many women, this many people that are Black, and this many people who are Asian, this
Who
many people who
says
are
that?
Hispanic. Yeah, I mean it's a debate, right? That within the
No, but
that
I think
should.
like someone who feels that way does not understand the military. They don't understand national security. They don't understand our adversaries. And they don't understand why having a military that reflects society is a recipe for disaster. No one should care what the military looks like. If you have standards that are based on merit and not characteristics of what you were born with, then you are going to ensure that the best and brightest, correct people to get the job done are in those positions and can ensure our nation's safety so they can go do the hard jobs of protecting our nation.
Right,
So people can sit back here and say, well, I want a military that looks like society.
right.
You want a military that looks like society is not going to be a strong military.
I think it stems from the police force. So it's this idea that like your neighborhood police force should reflect society. It should, you should have Hispanic officers in Hispanic neighborhoods and Black officers in Black neighborhoods and women in there. And, so that there's this mix, so that there's kind of an understanding as they're policing civil society. And that mentality of we need to diversify police forces, I think, has then seeped into the military, into this idea of then we need to diversify the military force, when obviously those two different forces have very different functions. I mean, the police are embedded in civil society, roaming, patrolling the streets, having contact every single day with civil society, whereas the military is not really supposed to be doing that, right? That's like a fighting force that's meant to defend our country. And that would be very different. We don't really need the military to be reflective of civil society if they're not even inside of civil society. They're not supposed to be anyway.
I will tell you the number one unifying thing for the military, as someone who served with every single color, a minority myself as a female in a very male dominated environment, the number one unifying thing isn't, well, should there have been 50% women? Like, would you be better at your job if 50% of your unit was women?
Right.
Um, no, that like what was unifying was our mission. And it's called, it was accountability, that everybody had to be there and pull their weight to ensure that the unit as a whole could accomplish the mission. So you had individual missions, but your broader team had to succeed as well. So there was cohesion, there was trust that was built. Why? Because we all believed in what we were doing, and that was our focus. When you take that away and say, that's not your priority anymore, it's making sure that we look like America, that we have like a certain number of this type of people, a certain number of this type of people, that's going to make you better. No, it doesn't. It makes you better when you have a standard, and all of those who are there, regardless of what they look like, gender, color, whatever, can do that. That is what unifies a team.
So let's get to the root of the problem that you mentioned. You're saying that, they're focusing on, well, I guess we got to recruit from people have changed. America's more fat. So I guess we're going to relax some standards a bit, I guess. Um, what do you think they should be? You said that the military has lost its focus and it's lost its appeal. So that's why those who are eligible, less and less of them want to even join. What do you think would be? I mean, I have my opinion on why I think people are losing their appeal. I think people don't want to fight in these wars that have no meaning for America anymore. I mean, we just seem to be in endless wars that are like, for what reason are we, Afghanistan, for example, they say, oh, well, if we pull out of Afghanistan, they told us for 20 years, if you pull out of Afghanistan, they're coming for us next. They're going to get us. We've got to stay there. Well, we pulled out of Afghanistan, and then what? Most Americans don't even notice because nothing really happened.
Yeah.
So, people are not Iraq, now that was like a war that was kind of shameful. People now look at these wars and they think, why in the world would I want to serve in these? I'm not really protecting the country. I'm protecting big business, oil, or whatever. I don't know. So what do you think it is?
I could not agree with you more. I mean, 100% like the DEI, like no longer a merit-based institution stuff that we've been talking about but from a foreign policy perspective, I'm right there with you. I think that people saw what happened in Afghanistan. They saw these forever wars that draw on and on, that service members who go over and to serve with or serve in these wars, like after they go on for so long, I wish I could do like a man in the street style interview in like a combat zone today and be like, what's your mission? What are you doing here? Because I had asked that question, and you got a lot of deer in the headlights looks, and like, because once Osama bin Laden was killed, it was like, we're
Yeah, why are we
building
still here?
girls'
Yeah, what are we
school.
doing?
We are ensuring that the government is stable. We're still standing up the Afghan military. And it's like, wait, after 15 years, they're still not able to stand on their own. Okay, you tell me when they will be able to stand on their own.
Yeah,
And general after general testified on Capitol Hill, and they all told Congress the same thing. The war is going in the direction that we want it to. The Afghan military is leading missions on its own. They are going to hold off the Taliban. The Taliban's no longer a threat. Like, we're just doing these like small time, middle of the night counterterrorism operations. It's keeping them at bay. Um, you talk to the special operation guys that were going on those missions, and they were like, no, they were US led missions. We would grab some guy to come with us so we could say it was an Afghan led mission. And that's the reality of what it was. But you had generals going and testify, painting this rosy colored picture of what the war was like to continue funding. And so
yeah,
we live in an age, an era where we have communication that's instantaneous, like that's visual. And so you see accounts of war, and you see, and like things aren't adding up. What's being briefed is no longer adding up with the reality of what's on the ground. And that really is what happened after Osama bin Laden was killed. People were like, what are we doing here? Like,
yeah.
and we saw the intelligence was completely wrong about the Taliban until like what, 6 hours before they took Kabul. They suddenly were like, okay, I think the Taliban still might be a thing, you guys. Like,
Right. Yeah, totally shameful. Totally
yeah, so people are
shameful.
saying, why do I want to sacrifice, missing my kids' birthdays, the minimal salaries, the living in mold infested barracks, the like never being in charge of your schedule, being like in some cases treated like a child, like you're not allowed to leave a 40-mile radius without getting, permission on your weekends. And people are just kind of looking elsewhere. They're looking at the civilian market, job market, and they're saying, I'm going to pursue other things like the military. That I think as a young usual when young men are interested in the military, things that they usually look at are patriotism, love of country, getting to travel around the world, shoot guns, work on equipment, like that kind of stuff. And that's not the military isn't selling that anymore. They're selling
Right.
like unconscious bias and, you know, lesbian activism. Like that's what they're selling. And like so these young men are just saying like, I thought the military would be cool and something I'd want to pursue, but it just doesn't seem like the reality of what it is anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the DEI and now that what are they doing? The one thing that they announced earlier last year, I think, was that they were going to allow trans people to like go through the surgeries or something, which would make them undeployable for an entire year or something,
Yeah.
like take them out of service completely, which was, um, but I mean, I think that the DEI, what's happened is that they just can't recruit. Like you said, they're just not able to recruit for a variety of reasons. And it could be people economically don't feel like the need to join the military, or people are like, oh, I don't want to join these forever wars. And what would I be doing? I think that they just don't have appeal. And that lack of appeal has caused them to say, well, crap, we got to go get the people that are willing because they have nothing else to do. And that's, we know that from statistics, like trans people have a difficult time finding employment. And so join the military, I guess, because that's been for many Americans. Like I said, not everybody, of course, but many Americans, it's been, well, I got nothing else to do. I've got no other option, so I'm going to join the military. And so I think they're kind of recruiting all of these people that are like the undesirables. I don't mean it that way, but in general, but that's who they're going after. And so they're having to, I don't know if the military, you tell me. I don't think the military has gone woke because the military wants to go woke. I think the military's gone woke because it has no other options for who to recruit.
I think the military's gone woke because of woke leadership. So I don't think that the rank and file wants a woke military. I don't. I
Right.
think but I do think leadership, who is leadership at the top, which is political, they are the ones who are pushing it down onto lower level commanders, who are then having to distribute those types of policies, which I do think are damaging to the force, and those who are serving are not. I think people who may be somewhat indifferent, like initially, like if you talk with them about woke policies or allowing these people and whatever, they kind of just maybe like not my thing. Like I'm just not like paying attention to that or whatever.
Right.
But then when it gets forced onto them and they start seeing it and how it's affecting them, they're saying like this is too much. This is ridiculous. But so no, I think it's woke leadership who is
Yeah.
then pushing it down into the military.
Well, you make a good point. I mean, like I said, the Senate has the responsibility to review, and if these guys want promotions, right? They're thinking of their careers. They want promotions. They got to go woke in order to get the promotion
Yep.
because the Senate's woke, and the Senate demands it. Then I suppose, it does have that sort of effect, right?
Yeah,
And
that's exactly right because that's what I say, like at a certain rank, like 0506, you become a yes man and you have to just keep your mouth shut in order to keep the promotion going, to ride your time out, to get your retirement. And that is what they see as rewarded in the
yeah,
military and at the top. And so after so long, it creates this culture of leaders not calling out wrongdoings, like not um, like the military used to be widely sort of known for like teaching leadership to like take care of soldiers and lead by example. And sadly, it's just not the, like when I talk about the military I served in doesn't exist anymore, like it has shifted drastically to like, no, we worship these policies and you will follow them blindly.
Yeah.
Um, so
I mean, I guess, I mean, I think the military, I agree with you, and you've brought up some really, really great points. I mean, I think that the military, first of all, I want a functional military. I want the actual combat troops, to be badasses like yourself who are gonna go out there and be the best of the best. Because look, if it were me and I was out there fighting alongside these guys, I would expect them to have my back, and I would hope that they would think that I would have theirs, right? I mean, you don't want to like worry about the guy who's supposed to have your back, and you're wondering like, are they even able to do this job? Am I going to die because this guy doesn't know how to do his job? That's
exactly.
nobody wants to feel that way, right? But I also do think that the military serves, I do think they serve a civil service for the country, where they do take in the people that don't have other options. I would rather people go join the military and serve in some capacity than to be on the streets, uh, doing God knows what, becoming, just like wastes in society. The military does offer structure for a lot of people. It does offer, and I think there's plenty of jobs where, we don't have to put these people on the front lines, right? There's like, there's cooks, there's musicians, there's everything in the military. It does operate as a society, a mini society,
Yeah.
inside, so I think there could maybe be a happy medium where it's like battle troops, actual combat troops. There is no DEI. Um, but I do think that if you go in that direction, by the way, I don't think that you would have been able to serve. I do think that there's enough people in this country that don't think women should be in the military, at least in combat roles.
I don't know if I, yes, yes. Okay. Combat roles, yes. I think most people feel like women should serve in the military because just like you said, there's plenty of diverse jobs for people
Right.
to do. You know, there's doctors, lawyers,
There's
veterinarians, like
clergy, there's
landscapers,
teachers, there's everything, right?
there's everything. So I think that yes, I do not think the so because I know, you know, someone watching will bring this up. I served in the only combat position that women was allowed to serve in before Secretary Carter lifted the ban in 2016, the end of 2015. Um, and I do think that when they lifted the ban, I think it was, if you read, he lays it out, and I actually address this in my book. He lays it out in 7 points when he addresses the media, because this is a big deal, right? They're
Right.
lifting the ban on women in military. They're going to be allowed to serve in all these different capacities. And uh, you read the 7 points he made, and it's like, women will be selected on merit, not because of their gender. There will be no double standards. Like commanders will ensure that there is no difference. Like it's you read it on paper and you're like, okay, this sounds good. Like, what's the problem here? The
Right.
problem is that the implementation was much different than the outline that the arguments that Secretary Carter made when he lifted the ban. Instead, you saw a lot of commanders saying, "Hey, I can use this as a way to make myself look better on my OER, my officer evaluation point. I can say I had the first female under my watch doing this." You know, there's lots of accusations in Ranger School because that was one of the first special operations unit or school to bring in women, and there were lots of accusation of special treatment on the courses, and you know, women weren't making it, and suddenly the general comes down on the lane to watch, and suddenly all of them pass. And so stories like that, like I very much get into in my book.
Yeah.
But like I said, like the argument I made is those women were awesome. They were incredible. They did not go to Ranger School to get special treatment. They wanted to go to Ranger School to get a fair shot.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to my whole point. Women, women want to succeed based on their own merits, not because the military thinks they need to lower the standards to help them out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't wanna see the military lowering their standards in with combat roles in particular, more with combat roles than anything else. The rest of the military, like I said, the military does have a society, a functioning society that supports all of the military, that supports the combat troops, and maybe that can be more inclusive and they can bring all these people in or whatever, I suppose, but
Well,
the
I just
actual
think I don't understand people when they don't think the military is inclusive. Like even me as like a very small minority in a female cat in a as a female in a cav unit, like they say like the cool thing about the military is that when you go to basic training or OCS, like they break you down. You come in as whatever you are, poor, rich, mom loved you, dad didn't, dad left you,
right,
whatever. Like whatever your background is, like you come into that school, they break you down and they build you back up together. And you're then the same. The same goes for um, color. They say, guess what? You're not black, you're not white, you're not whatever, you're green. Everybody wears the same uniform and we all
right.
bleed the same color on the battlefield. That's the like common, like you ask somebody that's serving, most people will say that. We wear green, we bleed the same color on the battlefield. And it's these policies that are telling everybody, no, you need to pay attention to your uniqueness and why you're different instead of focusing on, what makes you guys a better team. And it's divisive, and that's where the problems come in, is that
Yeah.
like it's divisive in an institution that thrives on teamwork and cohesion and esprit de corps. And when you're sitting there dividing people, that breaks it down and it makes it a weaker military.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen show, which you could catch just by heading to that link down below, KimIversonShow.com. You can watch the full show from what you just watched, or you could catch the full show live Monday through Friday, live streams, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you then. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Never miss an episode. Never miss a clip. Never miss a segment. Thanks, guys.